Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, worshippers of all ages, welcome to YouTube. My name is SeaRaptor, and today we're continuing our ranked recommendation series for Season 17 of Ranked Battles here in World of Warships, moving on to talk about Tier 8 battleships. Now, before we get into this, let me make sure that people understand what I'm doing here, okay? This is not an in-depth analysis of every Tier 8 battleship. I make shorter videos. And so what I'm trying to do here is give people an idea of, look, if you're looking for some quick ideas, here's a few ships I would recommend. Here's a few ships that maybe you would be well off to play. They have some really good things about them. And then if you're really confused, here's a couple of ships. If nothing else, I would avoid these ships and play almost anything else, okay? So we don't go into every ship here, guys. That's too much work. That's all. It's too long. That video would be an hour long and nobody would watch it. So let's get to it and let's talk about what we're going to hit. Starting off at the top of the list, this is going to be the most popular pick of the entire season. This is Tier 8 Premium American battleship USS Massachusetts. For the best all-around battleship in Tier 8, look no farther than this monster. Massachusetts checks in with pretty much, she ticks all the little boxes you would want for a battleship in this format, right? She has 16-inch guns, she has above average AA, she has really solid torpedo protection, and she has really, really good handling. The ridiculous secondary suite, right? Because her secondaries are buff, they have extra accuracy, is just an amazing bonus. Especially given that the commander skills you're likely going to use to buff that secondary suite will also buff her AA suite at the same time. So even if there's no carrier in a game, right? You spent points on like basic firing training and advanced firing training and so on and so forth. You're still going to get use out of those skills when you move up and move ships come into your secondary range. It's just a sea of win for this South Dakota class ship. Did I mention, by the way, that both her damage control party and repair party consumables recharge twice as fast as almost every other battleship in the tier? I didn't? Well, yeah, there it is. Consider it mentioned. I mean, seriously, guys, this ship is insanely popular in these formats for a reason. She just has so many advantages in just about every matchup you can put her in. If you have one of these and you want to play a battleship, I highly recommend it. Next, let's talk about Tier 8 Russian battleship Vladivostok. Now, Vlad's been through a few nerfs since she released last year, but she remains a very, very good pick at Tier 8. She has the largest health pool of any Tier 8 battleship and mounts 9 16-inch barrels married to a hull with average speed and a nice little AA package. Learning to manage her quirky damage control party functionality is key to maximizing this ship, so if you want to play Vlad in ranked, make sure you're comfortable with that skill before you queue up in one of these. By what I mean is she has a fixed number of charges of her damage control party. She can't just spam it endlessly over the course of a game. Positioning her is also a bit different than Massachusetts, in my opinion. Vlad is much more vulnerable to torpedoes, so playing her with a screening unit or two out in front of her is a huge help in spotting torpedoes, especially in matches where the torpedoes are going to be a problem, say in matches with a lot of Japanese destroyers. If the enemy destroyers are a Z-35 and a Kiev, then you're going to play this ship differently than if it's a Kagero and a Cossack, let's say. Okay? Last in the rank section, let's talk about Tier 8 Premium German battleship Tirpitz. Coming up on her 5th birthday and still going strong, Tirpitz remains a very, very good battleship pick for these kinds of ranked grinds. There are probably some battleship players out there that would disagree with me, and I'm okay with that. But suffice to say that as somebody who plays a lot of cruiser, I want nothing to do with one of these damn things. When built out for a full secondaries, a Tirpitz can sit inside his secondary bubble, it's like 11 kilometers and change, and ignore me. He can shoot at something else while clicking on me and simultaneously melting my little cruiser. It's downright disrespectful. If that Tirpitz gets impatient or just bored, he can push up in my face and torpedo me no matter what I happen to be driving. Tirpitz's AA is below average, and the 15-inch guns require some adaptation in certain matchups. Don't get me wrong. We talked about this in the cruiser video, right? There are cruisers in this tier that can bow tank your 15-inch guns. But these things are not deal breakers. Neither is her very German armor scheme that makes her more likely than other battleships to survive mid and close range engagements. When you absolutely positively need it dead, Tirpitz can deliver. Very well may be a trade, but depending on the enemy ship she trades for, it can be the crack in the dam that your team needs to generate a victory. Honorable mentions. All right, so these are ships that maybe not would make the top of the list, but they certainly wouldn't be bad picks. Let's look at Tier 8 Japanese battleship Amagi. Now, I came very, very close to picking Key for this spot, but the more I dug into the differences in their armor and protection schemes and compared, kind of weighed that against Key's improved AA suite, I convinced myself that Key makes too many trade-offs to be the pick for ranked. The main battery on the two ships is very nearly the same, and Key's anti-aircraft suite is way better, and she packs thicker belt armor. But Amagi's torpedo protection competes for best in tier, so even if a carrier planes survive to drop torpedoes, Amagi's going to feel it far less than Key will. Amagi's also slightly faster with a better Sigma on her main battery, though I admit that the difference is minute enough that you functionally cannot tell the difference. Key's torpedoes may also draw her some fans, but in the end, it just feels like Amagi is going to be more survivable. That torpedo protection is no joke. I mean, I don't know, maybe this really is a toss-up, but I think I'm going to stick with recommending Amagi, but caveat that by saying that if you think you can make Key work for you, go for it. Whatever you do, don't discount either of these ships. 10 16-inch barrels means that they have the heaviest throw weight of any battleship in Tier 8. Moving on, let's look at Tier 8 American battleship USS North Carolina. In some ways, North Carolina is the poor man's Massachusetts. She retains the really solid main battery and anti-aircraft suite, but loses out on the quick cycling heel and damage control party and the stellar torpedo protection. Shell velocities are a little slow and do take some getting used to, if you aren't already, but the main battery performance is absolutely there, and carriers will want to avoid you. I mean, they will actively try to drive around you. Like Vladivostok, she's on the vulnerable side to torpedoes, so trying to keep a couple of screening units out in front of her to help spot torpedoes early is a huge help. Unlike Massachusetts, however, North Carolina is not much of a brawler, so holding her at mid-range, in my opinion, is the key to success with this ship. She can't charge a torpedo-armed cruiser or battleship and get away with it, but if she's able to hold the range open and let her guns do her talking for her, she's more than capable of contributing to a win. Last on the honorable mention list, let's talk about Tier 8 premium British battleship HMS Vanguard. Surprise! It's time for my troll pick. Every serious battleship player in the game just turned this video off and tabbed down to the comments to call me a moron. And honestly, 6 months ago, I would have been one of them. But my viewers on Twitch really opened my eyes to this ship. I had fallen into the trap of thinking of every British battleship as an HE spammer, but the premium British battleships have much better performance out of their AP shells than their tech tree cousins. So it is with HMS Vanguard. Her guns are fairly accurate and have those AP shells have longer fuse timers than the British battleships in the tech tree, meaning that her shells will penetrate a little further into the enemy ship before exploding. It means that her AP shells are much more usable at long ranges. It makes a radical difference in how this main battery performs. Her AA is above average for the tier, and she has that same ridiculous British heel that the high-end tech tree British battleships all get. And that's good, because I'm not going to lie, this ship is soft. She'll eat full pens from most enemy HE and AP shells all day long. But her Citadel is below the waterline, so she's not super vulnerable in that regard. Vanguard is as close as you'll find to playing a quote-unquote sniping battleship in this tier with her range and shell groupings. But I don't recommend playing her that way. I would keep this ship at mid-range, kind of like a North Carolina, and let her pick on and bully cruisers because she can absolutely do it with these shells. Well, that's all well and good, Raptor, but what should we not be playing? What ships should we what would you recommend we not play? All right, well, we just talked about Vanguard. Let's look at the other end of the spectrum. This is Tier 8 British battleship HMS Monarch. For me, old famous and historical Monarch here wins my medal for the single worst battleship in the entire game, right? I would rather play a Amagi or a South Carolina than suffer through another game in this POS. Now, to be fair, Monarch has a couple of things going for her. She has that same crazy heel that Vanguard does, like we just talked about. And her AA suite is fairly stout. But her guns, guys, these guns just make me want to gouge my eyeballs out. This main battery is absolutely terrible. The tropes about British battleships spamming HE are real, partly because wargaming has gimped their AP shells so badly in the tech tree that you're left with few other options. Monarch's AP is usable once you move up to 10-12 kilometers or so, kind of mid-range, right? But only against certain targets. The problem is, Monarch is so soft that she doesn't want to be that close. So it's a catch-22. If you move up to where your AP is effective, you get melted. If you hang back and sling HE, you're just not very impactful in a game in a ranked situation. Plus, your teammates will just mock you. So, guys, just do yourself a favor. Avoid the frustration and pick a different ship. And last on the avoid list, a pick that breaks my heart. This is Tier 8 Premium Italian battleship, Roma. Continuing with tradition, I have to pick a ship I dearly love and put it on the avoid list. Roma is a perfectly good battleship, but the inconsistency of her main battery is what lands her on the naughty list here. Over the course of a long match with 12 enemy ships to shoot at, sooner or later, these guns will eventually perform, particularly given how tanky and survivable Roma's hull is. But within the confines of a ranked battle, though, her temperamental dispersion and, let's be honest, excessive shell penetration become unattractive liabilities rather than merely interesting challenges to overcome. Roma has some things going for her, chiefly her survivability, we talked about that, and her relative stealth for a Tier 8 battleship. This thing can surprise people with where she moves around the map. Sadly, neither of these make up for her glaring weakness. These 16-inch shells simply have too much penetration for most of the targets she'll find herself shooting at, and the gun dispersion is so wonky, they're not reliable enough to know you're going to hit what you're shooting at when you need it. You need those shells to land. It pains me to say this, guys. It really does. You have no idea. But you're really better off picking another Tier 8 battleship. So there you go, guys. That's our look through Tier 8 battleships. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm not going to lie, guys. I am not the most prolific or the best battleship player in the game. So if you have other ideas, other comments, hey, hit me up in the comments. Let's talk about it, because we're all here to try and make each other better. Help us all get through this ranked grind. So let's hear your ideas, or tell me where I screwed up or where I went wrong. And let's all collaborate and make everybody better, right? That's kind of the goal here. In the meantime, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Wash your hands, be safe out there, and I'll catch you next time.